Hey everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I have with me comic creator Anthony Stokes, who is interesting to say the least. To say the least. So, welcome to the show.
You sound interesting.
Yes, you're very interesting lately, to say the least.
Yo, elaborate, please.
Just a lot of controversy, doing some interesting things in comics, and obviously that's what's going on. But you're in the middle of a Kickstarter right now that is at 4,100, so you're $100 over your goal, and you got a few days left. You got about 2 weeks left within Truths of Thoughts, and obviously the book is dealing with some interesting topics as well. But before we really get into the book and start talking about it, what is the basic premise of this book for those who are hearing about it for the first time, are going to be seeing this out on Facebook, out on YouTube, out on Twitter? What is the basic premise for those who are, as I stated, hearing about it?
Absolutely. So it's about an orphan, and he has all kinds of mental health issues. He's got anxiety, so he's got depression, migraines, sleep paralysis, and his sleep paralysis even bites one of his classmates and materializes. So it's a mystery to find out what happened with that and what happened to his parents.
Yeah, so obviously let's get into this a little bit, because obviously this kid Tyler has some serious issues, because I think he was left abandoned at a police station. I'm presuming that he was in and out of foster care is kind of the vibe I got from the comic. I don't think it goes too much into that. And now he's 15, 16, I think. And so he's in high school. He's getting bullied. Obviously, he's got some issues. So where did even this idea come from? Because when you go into mental health and you start talking about issues like this and having night terrors and sleep terrors and things of that nature, I mean, it gets complicated, because you don't want to be disrespectful to the people who have those issues, but you also don't want to soften it up, and you also want to be raw. And so what is that like? Because it's a very tricky thing to write about. And also it is a hot button issue, because mental health is a very difficult topic to talk about.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, it was really about just like treating it with care, right? And I think a lot of people go through like maybe the sleep paralysis, the orphan and stuff. That's more specific. But as far as going through anxiety, depression, loneliness, I think a lot of people go through that. So I think that a lot of that you can draw from personal experience. I think also not trying to, I think you can become disrespectful by doing too much research. Like you can try to make it too authentic, which can be a problem, because then it's a, instead of a plot device, you're trying to make a super hard stance on it. And I think it's just a backdrop for the character to kind of get over, as opposed to like a real hard stance or a hard take about, these issues that, as you said, are very nuanced.
Yeah, let's talk about that too. I mean, obviously, I worked in VSOs, which are veteran service organizations. And so I know a lot about PTSD, and I know people write comics about that. And, I have a real issue sometimes with that, because, there is an issue where you can make it too authentic, or you're trying way too hard on what it is, what it can be. And not saying that somebody's intentionally trying to mess something up, but I think when you go into things, there is a fine line where if you push too hard, you're going to hit nerves, you're going to hit buttons, and you're going to become offensive. It's not a secret that I have a physical disability. If somebody who doesn't have a physical disability starts writing and they push far enough in, it's going to come off in a very offensive way. And so I think it's very interesting, because obviously as a writer, you're meant to push the line. But I think sometimes writers also don't know how to caress the line and walk on the line, but not in the line, if that makes any sense.
No, you're absolutely right. We're on the same page, because you could be just trying to make a statement about PTSD just in a broader sense, just about trauma, right? Just about trauma and overcoming trauma. But if you insert too much real life stuff, then you risk the opportunity of missing stuff. You run an opportunity of being misinformed. And that's you got to be responsible when dealing with stuff like that. I agree.
And then obviously the other thing you just mentioned is that the whole thing of what he's dealing with is the backdrop, and then his paralysis, and his problems take the form of a demon that sort of attacks. And I don't know if it kills the fellow student, but it attacks. And so what is that like too? Because that's also very interesting where you're taking a concept that is very much in the, I guess, mental space, and you're making it physical. And I think that's also very cool on a metaphoric level. It's also cool to play with that idea. It's also the idea of how to face our inner demons. And so, what is that like too? Because it makes the point crystal clear what somebody is actually dealing with. Because unfortunately, in our society, people don't know what people deal with on a mental health level. But when you make it physical, it's a little bit more obvious. So, what was that like? So it makes it such an interesting story.
Well, that's the hook, right? Like if the sleep paralysis demon only comes out at night, there's no story, right? So that's the element that makes it. That's what he's presumably been having sleep paralysis his entire life. This is the inciting incident, right? Is him biting the kid, and that's what the entire series is about.
Yes, yes. It's very interesting, and I'm purposely trying to ruin massive spoilers here
Mm-hmm.
for a reason, because I actually want people to back the book.
Please.
But it's so interesting because I really enjoy this topic of what mental health is, how you deal with it, also what Tyler's going to have to face. Because I don't even know if Tyler's aware, the kid in the book, of what has happened, and that's the other thing too, is that he was being bullied, and then all of a sudden, his entire paralysis demonizes and becomes physical, and it
Mm-hmm.
attacks his bully. And
Yeah.
it also raises the question is that it's not just going to stop at attacking his bully. It's who does it attack next? Because who cares that it attacked his bully?
Yeah.
That's not the real issue. The issue is that he has somebody he cares about, and is that person next? And how do you deal with that? And it's just such an interesting topic because you could view it on a mental health level. You could view it on how do you succumb to your demons? How do you face your demons? What is the solution to all that? And so there's a million ways on how you can interpret this and
Yeah.
view it. And that's what's fascinating is that it's not just, it's very gray, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word.
No, that's exactly right. Like it's supposed to be. It's a first issue. It's supposed to kind of reel you in. Kind of be kind of vague and from the results, it seems like we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, so obviously, then there's a lot more stuff coming, and obviously, this is issue one
Mm-hmm.
of this, and there's a lot more stuff that's going on, and it's definitely interesting to say the least. Um, and I like it. I like it because I did read it, and I read it, and I
Thank
like
you.
where it's going, and it's very interesting, and I also like the style of it as well,
Yeah.
where it's definitely a looser style. It also is more mystic. And so, what is that like too? Because it's different. And even to dive into that a little bit, I hate to say this, but I find that a lot of comics are very similar. And it's nice to have that switch and also have a looser, more gritty style.
Do
And
you hate
also,
to say that? Really?
what?
Do you hate to say that? Like a lot of comics are similar.
Yeah, like because I don't want to beat down and say that it's bad,
Right.
but it's almost like I can go through. I have a lot of comics in my basement, and I can go through it, and I can spot. And if I was to divide into piles, you'd have a big pile over here of things that are similar in the style, how they're drawn, how the story is presented,
Mm-hmm.
versus now we have a grittier, a looser story, more of a mystic story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a real issue. And I think people try to go and, I guess, make their story mystic. But when it goes down and gets, I'm trying to figure out the words here for this. But when you boil it down, it's the same shit. And it's kind of nice to have something that's a little bit out of the box.
Yeah, I mean, so we kind of referenced it being interesting, right? Like you called me interesting. It's like I just looked at the space, like the indie space, and I just wanted to stand out. And I think a way to stand out is make stuff that just is just different, right? So thank you for picking up on that. Thank you for reading as well. I really appreciate that. And so for me, I want to do something. I want to do something different. I wanted some like which I'm gonna try not to be too crazy here. If anybody could tell my story, I feel like I don't know if that's the story we're telling for me.
Let's actually dive into this because this is my biggest pet peeve, and I'll interject my own position into this.
Yeah.
So I ran a Kickstarter for this show
Yeah.
last January, and the flack that I got was in my opinion unfounded. So I see a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. I see that shows and interview shows, you know, both sponsorships come and go, money comes and goes, and there's a big debate whether people should pay to be on shows or not. I was on
Yeah.
Tyler Carpenter's show. Obviously, a bunch of people are speaking about it. Super interesting discussion. And at some point, I'm gonna have this discussion on my Friday night show.
Yeah.
Um, and it goes down to relationships between guest and host. And my theory and my thought, obviously looking back, is saying if you don't experiment and you don't push the line on writing in a different style, writing or presenting something, filming something in a different style or with different ideas, how the hell does something expand? How does creativity foster? And this is my whole issue is with comics is that if anything, we should be saying, go right ahead and try to do something different that's out of the box. And why don't you do the exact opposite of what everybody else is doing? I mean, I'll throw a crazy company out there. There's this little company called Nintendo with the Wii. The Wii is a very different concept than the Xbox 360. The Wii did better than the Xbox 360 because it incorporated motion sensing and it had more family fun games and it made Nintendo a boatload of money and it
Yeah.
found a blue ocean strategy. And
Yeah.
that's my whole issue with comics is that isn't if we want a healthy, viable community, shouldn't there be more experimentation versus blocking out concepts? And if we all boil it down, it's the same shit in the water. And what I find is that you're attempting to do something that's slightly different or a hell of a lot different, depending on who you ask. But what is that like? Because that's my biggest pet peeve in comics right now. And the other pet peeve is people attack other people for trying something different. And I find it the weirdest fucking thing on the planet.
Yeah, man. So let me say, I don't know the criticism specifically received for like doing this, but honestly, when I look at the landscape of indie comics, there's not enough promotional platforms. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not, like I said, I don't know the structure. I vaguely remember this, but like just the concept of a show charging for guests or kickstarting for guests. I mean, it just we need to build these platforms up. So I mean, I would support that wholeheartedly. And you're right. You're right. Like, it's people reject new ideas. And what's disappointing to me is that this would be the medium that I would think you would think comics would be the most freedom. Like that's why I make comics. So I can do whatever I want. But people are resistant and to basically, yeah, like you said, new things. And I think it's unfortunate. And like the creators that are gonna come out and do their own thing and make unique stuff, you're gonna and it's good. You're gonna see them. You're gonna see them do things. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's complicated, and I think it's actually threefold. I think people are very much threatened. So I actually think it goes to the idea that everybody in the last 3 years has had a hell of a lot more time, and they've actually figured out how to know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you've spent a lot of time with yourself, you say, what do I really want out of life?
Yeah.
I'm having that conversation with myself right now, very privately, not very publicly.
Yeah.
I just turned 30, like 2 weeks ago on January 10th. So I'm having a lot of conversations with what do I want in the next 20 years. So obviously, I think that's what happened because I want to do a comic book. And then I think people say, I want to make a lot of money. And then I think also people are saying, I want to protect my legacy. And also some people say, look, I want to do my indie comics so I could write for Marvel or DC, or I can
Yep.
get my book into Image.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that they view some of this as a tryout, or what they're terrified of is that the competition has gotten a lot fiercer. And there's all these new kids on the block. And in the last 3 years, there's probably been like 2,000 new comic writers easily. And let's be realistic, 1,800 of them are probably not here for life. But out of those 200, maybe there's 50 who are serious competition
Yeah.
to the establishment, let alone to Marvel's position, let alone to Image. And I think some of these people are terrified of that. And that's what I
Yeah.
think it goes down to. And that's why they're opposing, because they're saying, look, this could challenge my livelihood. Because now, if there's 50 new good comics and they have a good comic, you now are in very much a red, very competitive environment. And that's what I think it comes down to. And that's a very controversial thing to say.
I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. I don't think. Can we circle back to the controversial stuff? Like, let's put a pin. You said something really interesting, but to me, like, I'm a super competitive person. One of the narratives that I don't like in the indie community is like it's not a competition. Now, I don't think it should be a competition in terms of money, right? Like, I don't really care about that, right? Because certain properties are going to make. If you make a superhero, if you, I mean, there are certain genres and certain things you can do to like make money, right? Like
I'll,
this,
I'll throw I'll throw something out there. If you do a Yowie or a Yuri book, and you hit that anime community up, it's
yeah.
gonna make bank. No matter which way you cut it, it's gonna make bank. It's just the way it is.
Some subjects are gonna get like this thing about mental health and like horror. This doesn't have the same ceiling as something like, and this is a great common America, right? Like you got everything. It hits all cylinders for what the market wants. You know, I'm not knocking that. That's a great series. It's done exceptionally well. So to me, the money thing I care less about, but whatever, I want to make the best comics. You know what I'm saying? I want to make the best comics in the market. But the thing is, my career is only getting better, and my comics are only getting better because of that competitiveness where I'm talking to people and being in the community and understanding the bar is being raised by fellow creators and stuff like that. So to me, I want the best. I want more writers, and also you think about it, like the more good indie comics there are, the more of an audience will grow for them. Like we need to bring more people in. You know what I'm saying? Like to the market. So that's a good thing. If there's like I want as many great indie comics as possible. You know what I'm saying? And I guess I I guess that just comes from confidence, right? But if you lack confidence, it's not those other creators' fault. It's really no other fault than your own. You gotta get better at what you're attempting to do so that you won't feel intimidated by that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I take an opposite approach. I actually think to some degree there's too much choice. I also think that part of the problem is that while you want as many good comics in there, I mean, what I said is that in the last 3 years, there's been such an influx that people are one and done, but there's also a bunch of garbage out there. And it's a real problem. It is
Yeah.
a real problem because there's plenty of things that I've read and I'm like, this wasn't good. And I speak to 10 other people like, this wasn't good either. The
Yeah.
concept wasn't bad. It just wasn't written well. And it's not necessarily the person who wrote it isn't a bad writer. It's just the series wasn't good. It wasn't and I'm not going to go name names, but I'm like, this was a waste of $20.
Well, that's the
And
thing though. The comics have to be good though, right? Like any comics have to be good for it to work.
But I think what happens is that, let's say that I'm a brand new reader. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, this looks interesting. And then it's a piece of shit. I'm not going to be so easily ready to come back into the market. And I think that that's part of the problem is that, you get somebody and then they have a bad experience or they get burned on a Kickstarter. And I think that's also part of the problem is that the community is actually not clean. I think the community is very, very dirty. And I don't think it's been solved. I don't think Kickstarter's done any favors to, penalize bad creators.
Yeah.
After 4 or 5 books, if you delivered relatively and you have a semi-good track record, you can launch immediately. I know people who launch on their editor's account, their account, and then their publishing account, all within a week of each other. And I'm like, how is this beneficial?
Yeah. Well,
And I
I
think,
agree. Sorry.
oh, please continue.
No, I'm just saying, like I think, but that's the thing about competition is that competition should be bringing the best out of people, right? So in a perfect competition, the cream would rise to the top. So I would argue if there was like if 50 great indie comic series just dropped out of the sky right now, would it make it harder for us? Yes, but also those 50 comics are bringing a new audience. You know what I'm saying? As well. So I mean, that's just the way I look at it, and I think the space it's a lot of people. It's a lot of fucking people here. So I agree with you, but that again goes back to what you're saying about you have to stand out on the market. And when people try to stand out, it happens to me. Like, right, for instance, and I got Larry in the I got Larry in he's in the comments. So we've gone back and forth about this. I don't use links on Twitter, right? The reason why I don't use links on Twitter is because when you use a link on Twitter, it gets throttled down to shit, right? To the point where I might get 10% of the views on Twitter with a link versus without a link. To me, give me the 10 people. Give me the 10 people. And I've trained my audience, I feel, to go to my pinned tweet. I got the pinned tweet as well. People, I'm just generally here. People will comment and like post the link under it sarcastically to be like, where's the link? This, that. People are like, people are shitting on me for trying something different. For instance, that's an example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, no. Even to go into that, because I tried something different and people shitted on me. What they don't understand is that you're already doing it anyway. It's just that people don't want to do it with shows. Pay to play is here. It's been here for years.
Yeah.
And the second you think it's not here, there's this little thing called Twitter Blue. I mean, pay to play, and I was speaking about it way before Twitter Blue dropped. So you're paying to play, and if you're paying for Twitter Blue to have your account verified, yet you won't support indie media, I mean, you're just picking and choosing. And if you attack me, that's called being a hypocrite. And if you like me, hate me, whatnot, that's fine. But that's what it looks like. Now, you could say, I don't want to support you because I find value in A over B, but you can't attack the concept. And people are attacking the concept. That's the problem. You could attack saying, I don't think Andrew or Conversations in Pop Culture is going to bring me the same value. But you should openly say that then. Versus saying, I shouldn't pay to play. The problem is nobody's going to say that. God forbid, in 3 years, what happens if I become the hottest show? And you said it publicly 3 years before, you're going to have to walk it back. That's the problem. It's an issue of honesty. But I think it's very interesting that we attack new ideas. I mean, I'm going to ask you a question that's not related. When was the last time you changed your opinion on something that was massive, that potentially changed the way you function? And then I'll preface it where 4 years ago, I was very anti-cryptocurrency. Yeah. I'm very pro-cryptocurrency, and I'm heavily invested in it. Not heavily. It's a little bit of my portfolio, but I'm a big advocate for it. But my opinion changed over time. So, but it's a new concept, and that's I think a good topic and a good example because that's something that I think is terrifying. And I know plenty of people are anti-cryptocurrency and they're anti-NFT and they're anti all that. And I'm like, great. What do you know about it? They're like, I know nothing about it. And I'm like, so you can't have an opinion on it. If you don't know anything about it, there you go. But I hold the question back.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the thing is that what's funny is I change my opinion so frequently, right? I just have like I just have so many. I'm like in the middle of this community, that we built over years. So I just get so much influxes of opinions and theories and all kinds of shit. So it's really so much that I try not to get locked into things. If Twitter's algorithm switched. And then the links weren't getting throttled, then I'd use the links, right? Like to me, it's like I try to be fluid. You know what I'm saying? Specifically, I got Pat in the chat, so I'll say something specifically and I'll say it publicly. I didn't like when I first saw comics, I had my initial concept about comics has changed 1,000,000%. Like I saw, and we talked about this. I saw what was it? Thirsty? I was like, oh, look at this motherfucker just selling sex, talking about Pat, right? Like, oh man, I would never do that. I wouldn't I saw it should be about the story, right? And then having read in Thirsty like 2 years later, 3 years later, whatever, it's an amazing book. There's some stories that use sex as a storytelling device, or excuse me, a plot device or a backdrop, and they're really great stories. So that's something that I did a full 180 on, and I think you can take a hard stance, but make sure that you're willing to be convinced with good evidence. Because if you're not, then you're just hurting yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, believe me, that's what happened with me with crypto is that I started doing a lot of homework and I started speaking to a lot of people, and they said this is what it looks like and this is what it can be used for and this is how it can be utilized. And clearly, if you look at M1 and M2, and this is all economics, so I'm not going to go into
Yeah.
some deep economics. Believe me, I was on another show this morning talking about that, and that was fantastic. That's coming out in 2 weeks, everybody. Um, yeah, everybody will have a different appreciation and view of me on that show. Um, but the whole point is that obviously my opinion changed
Right,
very
right, exactly.
significantly, and the reason why I bring this up is that I think that because what I find that's so weird is that, and you brought this up, and then I saw a lot of people coming after you, and what I didn't see is saying, why do you think that way?
Yeah.
That's
Oh
the thing.
my
I think this
god.
is the problem. I really think this is the problem. And I think it's actually the biggest deficit in comics is that why do you think that way utilizing this cover or doing it this way or doing that idea? And people have challenged me and said, that's a bad idea, Andrew. And I said, why is it a bad idea? And they couldn't answer me. And usually, when somebody can't answer me, when I say, cool, I want to print 200 copies of my book when I don't have an audience, they're like, that's a bad idea, Andrew. And I'm like, why is it a bad idea? And they couldn't answer me.
Yeah. Well, exactly, because it's traditional wisdom, but like me, and I'm like me personally, traditional wisdom can't do shit for me. If everybody was following traditional wisdom, everybody would have a $100,000 campaign. But I can think of like 5 creators that I know. Like I know Brian Polito, Keanu Reeves, Wesley Snipes, Pat Shan. Those are the creators I know with $100,000. If this like traditional thinking worked, we would all be millionaires, right? And that's my perspective. I was curious, like, what did you mean like, did you have a specific example of me saying something and people jumped down my throat? Like,
Yeah. There was a few things. The page turn thing
yeah,
was a big one,
yeah,
which I didn't know what a page turn was. I had to ask a bunch of people what that was because
yeah,
I was like, I'm going to write a story. However, the story gets written is how it's going to get written.
yeah,
There's plenty of stories that don't need page turns. There's
yep,
plenty of movies that don't need a dramatic thing. There's plenty of novels that the entire thing is a page turn, for lack of a better word.
yeah,
So my whole thing was that if this is how you write and it's working, shouldn't the real thing saying is how is he making it work?
wow, Andrew. I think we need to have this conversation way we needed to talk way sooner. But you're right. You're absolutely right. Like the fact of the matter is, considering I've been doing this for 2 years, I'm having a great fucking start to my comic book career. Like 4 successful Kickstarters. We'll see where this ends up. 133% funded, I think was my lowest. That's my lowest percentile of like hitting my goal. Like, you don't have to listen to me, but like it's working. Like you can't deny that it's working. And it's like, what it is people are just so, like I said, it's that traditional thinking. Like you can't explain to me. So the thing about the page turn. So for those who don't know, I think everybody will. I mean, by now is also like I started a greater dialogue about page turns. Like, do I get any credit for that? But no,
I
but
get no credit for that Tyler Carpenter interview that we did. I get no credit that a bunch of people reached out to me, a bunch of people reached out to Tyler, a bunch of people reached out to like 15 other creators because it opened up a massive discussion and question for a while. And nobody really was like, dude, like this is your idea to talk about something with Tyler. And it was a very interesting discussion and it was long overdue. It was long overdue, that conversation.
I agree.
And there you go. And that's the thing is that I think people are terrified to have these conversations because I think they think it's going to end their career. I really do.
Jesus Christ. I mean, that it's so funny is that it's like, oh well. I mean, I don't know. But what you're talking about, that pay to play thing, I do want to circle back to the pay to play thing. It's like, yo, like, wouldn't it be better? I would love to pay a platform $50 and then I get 50 viewers who are really engaged in Kickstarter, right? And I get an audience of 50 pledges. Now, is that what's happening? I don't know. That's where
This is where pay to play becomes complicated, right? So pay to play in comics, the area it's in the most right now is at cons. You pay for a table. Now,
Yep.
what's happened is that, and you pay for cover art, you pay for a lot of things in comics. Then
Yeah.
I come along and I say, hey, look, I'm independent media. Why don't you buy me a coffee for $5? And everybody's like, buy you a coffee for $5? You can't guarantee me anything. And my response to all those people is the following, saying, you just paid $300 for a cover that could go one way or the other
Yep.
for your cover B. You just paid $500 or $250 for a table and another $250 for your hotel at a con. So right now you're spending money left and right. You paid to produce your book out of pocket or half of it out of pocket. You're probably going to lose money on it to some degree at some point, and you hope that you sell enough copies in the long run that you break even or go better. You're paying to play the whole fucking way. And then you have the audacity to say to me, I don't want to pay you. Yet I'm out here interviewing, and then I send your interview into 60 Facebook groups. I cut it up, I micro content, I share it out constantly. And what happens then? And whether I get you a backer or not you personally, but it's like you're already paying for so much shit that this is marketing.
I
And
agree
that's
with
the
you.
whole problem. And I understand that there's little money, or what winds up happening is that it's the end of the line and I'm the last run at the letter. I get it. But if you don't think that maybe you need to reevaluate who's the most important people, and if this basically says fuck it, there you go. And it gets worse because all these people that I have on my show, they have shows and they don't want to fucking talk to me, let alone I've been in the business of comics for almost 12 years. So they don't even want to reciprocate. And that pisses me off even more. And that's the problem, I think, is that we're here to pay to play, and it ends in a very bad way. The way it ends is that this show at some point will have 12 live read ads in a 60-minute interview every 5 minutes. And it's going to get to that point because that's the only way this is going to be sustainable for every interviewer. It's going to suck. It's going to suck.
I mean, the fact that you're taking this and you're putting it, you're editing it, and you're putting it in the sick, like how many? If you put it in one fucking Facebook group, that's amazing. My own, well, and everything you're saying is right, Andrew. Like, to be clear, I don't have a problem paying for an interview. Now it has to be the right interview, but that goes back to what you're saying. Where I like where you said, like, if you don't think the Andrew Davis conversation in pop culture is worth X amount, that's fine, but you can't shit on the idea, right? Like, that's the thing. But I think indie creators need to support more platforms because we need them. Like, we need the platforms to promote. So I don't know. I feel like it's unfortunate that a lot of these platforms. I remember Tyler I said Tyler was like, he made a stream and he was like, these creators will just hop on and then they don't invite him onto their platforms, XYZ. It's like I think we need to get better about treating these platforms better. You know what I'm saying? In the community.
I think that a lot of people in comics, what is, you need to have a marketing cost. I get that not everybody can afford to pay for an interview or throw me a $5 coffee. I get that. And I understand that if you're barely making it, it doesn't make sense. But you better fucking bring me something of value.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is that, I've had guests who did not want to be here. And I'm like, I'm wasting my time with said person, and you better bring me something of value. Bring me, everybody knows everybody. Don't bring me your artist it's his first book. If you have a cover artist who's a superstar, fucking finagle it. Say, I owe this person something, put in a good word and make it happen. And say, and if that means that, like, I don't know who you have, but we're going to get to your stuff in a second here, but I'll give you an example. So I'm trying to get Ariel Diaz on. I think she's great. There are people who have worked with her who have been on my show. I'm like, do me a solid, put in a good word for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Make that interview happen. That's how you take care of a guest or a host, is if you've worked with them 2 or 3 covers in, you got to say, look, I owe this guy a favor. Can you do me a solid? I've worked with you. I'm planning to work with you for a while. Hook up my boy. And this is where this becomes problematic, is that sometimes in life, if you can't do money, you better bring something else to the table.
Yeah, exactly. And no, that's great. I try to bring, I mean, that's why I try to bring like a lot. I try to make every interview as good as possible as well. Like, are you,
But
yeah,
it's not so much about the interview. It's that if all of a sudden you have a connection to somebody, right?
yeah,
And you know that I want to interview them, or I'm like, hey, I know Ariel Diaz really well. Let me put in a good word. Let me make this happen. Let me make this work a lot quicker for you. That's the thing that I think also needs to happen because that's supporting independent media, and this is the biggest problem I have with comics, and I think that these conversations don't happen. I think you know what it is. I think there's a lot of takers and there's not a lot of givers in comics right now. I really think that's a problem, and I think is actually going to be exposed in the next 12 months.
yeah. Like I said, I don't disagree with you. Like, if you were to leave, if you were to stop doing interviews, like, where would that leave us? Blake's Buzz. He's another creator. That goes on here and promotes a lot of creators. You know what I'm saying? Keeping it geekly. If these guys leave, how we getting our work out there? I mean, that's part of the reason why I started a YouTube channel to just to like have another. I didn't want to have to rely on other people to be able to promote my shit. And like I said, it's like I don't think I think we as a community could, like I said, treat the platforms better. I'm about to tweet that right now. But like I think what I'm saying. Like I said, I think we should have talked earlier because no, we're having we have the same kind of thought process of like people aren't having real conversations that need to happen, productive conversations. That because they're scared like they don't want to bother anybody, but sometimes good conversation, like how many like the most important conversations of my life were not fun. They weren't fun conversations, you know what I'm saying? Like they weren't like I wasn't jumping for joy to talk about this stuff, but it's important.
It's very complicated, and I think that unfortunately, people don't want to do this. I mean, what people don't realize is that I don't have to do this. I
Nope.
can go back and I could interview wrestlers, voice actors, cosplayers, and I'm somewhat doing it
Yeah.
already. And there's definitely a reduction in comic people for a few reasons. I don't think that the community has been particularly kind to me, to be quite
Yeah.
honest. And it's going to upset a bunch of people when I say that. But I think there's been a lot of takers, and I think a lot of people have not been exactly appropriate to me and have really appreciate what I do. Tabling money, even just saying thank you. A
Yeah.
thank you goes a long way sometimes. And I
Yeah.
think people have been very unappreciative of good etiquette is a good word to use. And then furthermore, I hate to say this, but if you just did an indie comic, a lot of times comic people don't move the needle. If I put up an interview with a voice actor, that thing over time is gonna get hundreds and hundreds of views without doing much work. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing too, is that this is a business. But I digress on
No, you're
that.
right. I want to talk some more about some hot takes. I like that. This is what's interesting to me. Is like what are some, give me some more hot takes, like give me some, well, what because you said I was interested, you started like what other conversations did you see that you were like, that's interesting. That's why I'm here. I love hot takes. I love like really, like taking the training wheels off a conversation,
it's the attitude also.
the attitude, like I'm a
I mean, I
toddler.
mean, I mean, I mean, I mean I'm the opposite in almost so many ways because I love keeping a low profile.
Really.
If what everybody's gonna find out in 2 weeks when the interview I did this morning comes out, they're gonna be like, oh shit. They're gonna be like, I should have speak to him before anything else too.
Yeah.
Because if anybody knew my whole business and everything that I do in my businesses and exactly what that looks like and what it's going to look like in the next 18 months, which I was speaking about, I was on a show that is geared towards $100,000 plus entrepreneurs. Talking about how to take money out of your business through distributions. Super fascinating discussion for about 30 minutes about a lot of different topics and how to run that and actually how to become profitable. And brilliant and investing in all sorts of fun stuff. And you're all going to figure out exactly who I am in that interview. 25 minutes or less, you can know exactly who I am. But what is this like? Because even getting attention, is a big issue. I mean, going back to the standing out component, I mean, you have to stand out now. I mean, I'm the opposite, where I don't want to stand out because I want nobody to know who the hell I am, and I'll quietly become very, very, very wealthy,
I get that too.
peacefully. And then when you live next door to me and you hear my nice Dodge Challenger Hellcat SRT, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, but like, I think we're well, like we're doing two different things. Like, I feel like trying to be a creator, indie creator, I feel as if it's advantageous to put yourself out there and market yourself. Like, I kind of came into the space, right, and nobody knew me. Like, I dropped my comic book series Decay in 2021, and I got on Twitter, and it didn't do as well as I'd hoped. Well, it did really well. It's actually like my third, probably honestly one of my better campaigns, but it wasn't sustainable. Like, my family kicked in a bunch. It was like so much stuff that I looked at and I was like, yo, this was like not, I can't do this every time. So I hop on Twitter to kind of like, all right, I need to start marketing, right? That curse, the M word, you know what I'm saying? So I go on Twitter and I'm like, it's the best of list because it's January. And I'm like, man, I hope I end up on one of these best of lists. And I didn't, because obviously I didn't, because I wasn't on anybody's profile. But I was like, damn, like, it's just a lot of people in this space. There's just so much going on. I got to make a name for myself. And then I just started like doing hot takes and stuff. And like, you can not like that. I mean, that's what we're on Twitter for. We're on Twitter for engagement. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird to be mad at somebody. Like, people will be like, oh, every time I see you post, it's like engagement bait. Like, oh, it worked. Thanks. So, but to me, it was like, I just need to stand out in the space. I'm gonna act like an ass, and I'm gonna act like an ass. And some people are gonna be like, yo, does he know what he's talking about? And the resounding answer right now is yeah.
Because I mean, my whole take on it is that I don't speak about things that I don't know anything about. I happen to know a lot about financial stuff, and people gave me shit for my Netflix play. You were all wrong. You were all wrong. Oh my gosh, you were all wrong on that. What a brilliant, brilliant move on my part. It wasn't as good though as my L Brands move.
Yeah.
Boy, do I love bra and panties. But anyway, L Brands is Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works. In case anybody didn't know that, I had a 738% rate of return on that stock split, so I'm pretty good at this shit.
Yeah.
But again, I shut the fuck up for reasons. This I charge for my financial advice a lot of money now. So if you would like to do that, guys, you could hit me up. If you would like to become wealthy like me, you're more than welcome to hit me up.
You're not doing a good job of shutting the fuck up.
A nice bill. But I digress. Yeah. My whole thing is that I just don't want to engage that way. For me, like, because it seems so confrontational, and that's my whole problem, is that I don't like confronting people. Like, I like arguing, and I like confrontation on points that I guess are supposed to be that way. But like, I feel like I'm not here to have a book and get confrontational with people, and I'm because I feel like it's going to explode, and like I feel like it can explode in your face very, very aggressively.
It's happened. I think I've gotten ratioed like twice.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's whatever. But then again, I'm doing well on shorts on some interesting issues right now. So, who knows?
I mean, it's Twitter, bro. People think Twitter's real life. Like, I think people forget these conversations. Like trying not to ruffle any feathers, to me is just like a dubious. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna work. You're gonna ruffle some people's feathers. People are not gonna like you. People aren't gonna like me. People, it's just human nature. So that, like, to me, it's just like, I don't know. I guess just lean into it. But even when I was getting ratioed, I was still getting mad. I was still getting mad followers. I was getting crazy engagement. It was 2 times I really got ratioed. It was the first time I asked, like, yo, how much do y'all charge for signatures at cons? And people were like, like my problem with, why do you got to make it like a moral issue? Like, either say you do it or you don't. Why the fuck you got to be like, oh, I would never betray my fans like that? It's like betrayal, bro. If they want to pay for this shit, you think about how much dumb shit you pay for. You talking about buying a Dodge Challenger? That shit is going to be worth Who knows what that's gonna be worth in 10 years? That's gonna devalue so much. It's a car. Like there's so much stupid shit we buy. You think people will mind paying $5 for a signature? So people are going back and forth, back and forth. Like, oh no,
It's an
this is
interesting
info.
topic. That's an interesting topic too.
Yeah,
You know why that came about, right? I mean, you know how that entire thing came about, right?
yeah,
It came
um,
about because what started happening essentially at all these cons is these top guys in the mainstream
oh
were now
shit,
charging for graded books. And then all
yeah,
of a sudden, what happens is that great Scott Snyder, and I'll choose Scott because I think it's a relatively safe bet. All of a sudden, he signs a book for free, gets graded. It's like cool. And then next day or 10 weeks later, that book is now selling for $400 on eBay. And he's like, "What the fuck?"
yeah,
And that's how this started. And then everybody in indie comics says, "Oh, I'm Scott Snyder." No, you're fucking not.
yeah,
And this is the problem is
damn,
that you can try if you want to charge $15 and you're an indie creator for your signature and nobody bites, that's fine.
yeah,
Because believe me, if people don't have money or they don't think it's worth it, they're not going to bite. And that's the end of that discussion. And if you start off at $30 and nobody's biting at 30, but maybe they'll bite at 10. And why not try it? And if you can get away with it, I'm the same way. Honestly, if I could get away with how much, I mean, I charge a lot of money for financial advising,
yeah,
but I'm not budging on that because I know what I'm worth.
yeah,
But
yeah, exactly.
I start high with sponsors because I want to get away with as much as I can. And that's called capitalism.
Yeah, and I see Larry in the space. Shout out to Larry. I mean, it's not a matter of like you like it's just a conversation, right? It's just asking a question. It's not a matter of like you need to do this, so you don't need to do
There's no
this, you can't do
morality
this.
here. This is business. This has nothing to do with morality. It's business. Because if I'm here to say, and I'll be very honest, that if I could charge $300 per interview and I could get away with it, I would be doing it all day on my show. All day.
Yeah, and the
It's not an
margins for
issue.
comics are dog shit as well. So it's like you're fuck. I mean, let me speak generally. Like people are fucking their fans somewhere, not fucking, but like you're getting your money back somewhere, right? And you know what? I don't charge for signatures at cons. It's kind of clunky. It's kind of awkward. Like you've charged them already. Hey, can you sign this? Yeah, give them the $5. It's clunky. But that's like I said, it's not the point. It's just a conversation. And to moralize it to me, because people are asking for it. Like, oh, people are like, oh, it adds no
I don't even
value.
think
It's
it's
like,
that. I think it's about how you structure your business, right? So, however you structure your business, where you can say, look, I'm going to charge $7 for my comic book, but I'm going to have to charge for signatures, or I'm going to charge $10 for my book. It's how you function, it's how you structure it. Maybe
yeah,
this is the only way you can go to the con. And I
mhm,
think, and it gets complicated because here's the problem is that what if the con doesn't want to take care of you? Or what if the con gives you a whole hotel room, but it's still going to run you $250 and you know you're not going to sell $250 worth of stuff. But if you sell, signatures for $5, you break even. Because that's the harsh reality of it. It's not a moral issue. It's not a problem. It's that you have to do what you have to do to
yeah,
survive. Because I can't afford it. I don't think you can afford it. I don't think anybody can afford it to, not lose money at a con or lose big money at a con. And because then you go out of business. And that's the whole thing is that I haven't been to a con in a long time. I can't really afford it, unless a con is going to take care of me speaking and, at that point, or give me free badges for me presenting, I
yeah,
can't go. And, and
yeah,
and even still, when I present for free and speaking and doing 3 panels, I lose money. But if I lose $100, but I have a nice weekend, that's not terrible. But I can't afford to lose $600, and that's just business. It has nothing to do with morality. And so, if you're a creator and that's where you're stuck, I mean, your fans, it's kind of like maybe the problem is somewhere else, and you're just trying to make the numbers work. And I think
yeah,
that's where it comes from. But
yeah. People were saying, oh, you're a beginner. You're nobody knows who you are. You're nobody. It's like, why the fuck are people asking for signatures? Like, you ask for a signature because a lot of people think it's gonna be worth more. Like they were like, oh, it has to be graded. Like they don't fucking know that. Like they're asking for an investment. It doesn't make any sense. And of course, the other thing we were talking about was I called marketing a comic book making skill, or I implied it was. And I asked if it was, and people lost their fucking minds, because like marketing's a bad word. People don't like it, but
I put up a short from an interview on what you need to make a comic book.
yeah,
So I'm going to ask you, what do you think that short dealt with? Just curiosity on what you know of me.
yeah, probably money,
Right.
finances.
So,
Yeah,
so it wasn't me. It was somebody else saying it. You need, somebody to do the art, the pencils, the colors, and the inks, and you need money for that.
yeah,
What you really need to make a comic is you don't need a script. I mean, you need a script, obviously, but you need money. You need
yeah.
money. This is a business. I
It's a
mean, I
business.
mean, is raising capital a comic book making skill or creation skill? I
Yes.
think it is. I think it is. I think it has to be, especially on an indie level on Kickstarter. The way you set up your Kickstarter, the way you run your Kickstarter, the way you approach your Kickstarter, that is a skill. And if
Yeah.
that helps to make your book possible, that is by definition a comic book making skill. By definition.
Yeah, people don't like it because it's not natural to them. They think you just make the motherfucking comic book and then that's it. But
They
like,
they want to be an employee, not an owner.
yeah, man, it's crazy. It's unfortunate, like I said, but like I said, the people that know, the people that understand it, the people that are gonna, and also the distinction that it's a skill that can be improved, right? I mean, that's the thing. If I said marketing is like you would never get better at it, you either have it or you don't. I don't understand, but it's like it's a skill. Like get better. It's a skill like writing. You got better at writing. Some people get better at writing. Get better at it. Stop crying.
It is what it is. Now that I got me and you canceled, you're welcome.
Bro. This is like the third time.
I briefly want to just do this. So this
Ooh.
is, I think, cover A of it. I'm just completely just making a hard transition here, completely out of nowhere.
Nah, yeah.
This is one of the covers. I think this is the same cover in the Virgin. This is that,
By Nico.
and then this is also another one. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Totally. After we got you canceled, because you do have a campaign going on. I know there's a bunch of stuff with Decay in there as well. I know there's some art prints. I know there's some other stuff, and yeah. So I just wanted to get that in there really quickly. Regardless of what happens next, totally, absolutely professional.
I'm not worried, bro. I get canceled. If there's a cancel, I said it on the timeline. I'm just reiterating what already happened on Twitter. Like this is a past tense conversation. Like this all happened.
No, there's certain things that are going to get you and me in trouble, and I'm sure that I'm going to be on a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure this is going to be referenced somewhere on the internet. I have a lot of enemies. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people who have a lot of questions. Hell, there are shows that I might not be able to go back on ever again because of this conversation, which is totally fine. Which is totally fine. If you don't like me,
fuck?
don't worry. I don't take it personal, anybody. There's plenty of people who like me, and sometimes they're a lot more attractive than the people who hate me. So I'm gonna leave it at that. But anyway, got a lot of cool rewards. And you're funded, which is good.
Let's go.
So yeah, so that's everything that's going on, and yeah, I just wanted to get there that you should back this book if you're into some interesting books that tackle mental health and demons and the paranormal, and obviously you want a 16-year-old kid to be triumphant in his quest and facing his inner demons. This is the book for you. Yeah. Also, if you want a mystical field book that's a little bit outside the box, that's another thing as well, and it's pretty affordable. Cover A is what, like $15?
Yeah, 15.
It's not bad. It's not bad. $15, and it's not bad considering it's indie. I mean, I think anything in indie, if your cover A is $20, I think that's pricey. I really do. I think 15 is a little high end. I think 12 is actually the perfect price point, but I get 15.
It's 28 pages.
Even still, I think 15 is pushing the line a little bit, but I don't think it's out of the box. If you put your book at $20 for cover A, I probably would have told you it was too pricey. I think, and I've told people publicly that too, that if you have a cover A that's $20, it's a little too pricey.
Nah, that's fair. That's fair. Nah, that
because
makes
a
sense.
Zenoscope book, um, I have one around here. I have one around here, everybody. It's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. As soon as I move my Power Go book, this right here is, I think, a $20 book, right?
Yeah,
This is limited to 299 of them. This is done by Keith Garvey. So unless your book looks like this and you're pricing it at $20 for a cover A, and you're not Zenoscope and you're not Keith Garvey, that's why I bring that point up. And I
fair
think
enough.
there's a fair position on that point, but that's how I feel. But I think you're pretty reasonable, so I like that. But yeah. So any other hot take issues you want to talk about before I let you get out of here?
Nah, man, I think I'm about to pass out. You tired? Let's wrap it, bro. We should talk. We'll talk again soon, though.
So obviously though, before you peace out and get out of here, I do want to give you an opportunity to self-promote yourself. Where could people find you? Where could people bother you? Where could people hit you up? Where could people back the Kickstarter, social media, all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. At Stokes the Writer on Twitter, at Super Comic Bros on YouTube. So check us out.
Yeah, and obviously I'm just gonna keep saying it. I've been saying it for almost 4 years now. You have to support indie, and what that means is that you need to back people's Kickstarters. You
Yeah.
need to share out their Kickstarters. You need to follow them on Twitter, Instagram, wherever else they are at. It's a big deal because it does make a big difference. And without money and without your support, nothing ever gets done, or it gets done at a slower rate. So it is super important to actually back campaigns and support campaigns. Furthermore, about me, quickly, obviously, I'm independent media, so I appreciate all the shares, likes, things, social media follows. Obviously, Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, which I'm having some issues with, but that will get sorted out. So if anybody would like to help me and is really good at fixing Instagram and getting me back into my account, please feel free to hit me up. It's a problem right now. It's unfortunate, but I think it'll be back in a few days or so. So that's on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics. Facebook is Pop Anime Comics, as well as YouTube is Pop Anime Comics. So if you want to support me, that's a great way. It's free. And I promise you on YouTube, there are over 500 interviews. So there is something for everyone on my YouTube channel to enjoy. And I also have t-shirts, and I do have Buy Me a Coffee, talk about supporting independent media. I absolutely appreciate it. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, everybody, but you do not have to. It's just something that people can do if they so choose and feel gracious enough to do so. It is always greatly appreciated on independent media, but it is not a requirement by anybody. But I do appreciate likes because they make me feel warm and special inside. So please like it. That is a requirement. Just letting everybody know. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh, damn. Put me on the spot. Buy and choose the thoughts. How'd I do?
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay,
Everybody.
okay, cool.